Okay, welcome everybody. This is Lance Luke, the National Building Expert, as part of the Ask the Building Expert webinar series. We have Martin Pea here. I don't know, Martin, what you doing? Oh, the reason why we started a little late is he was going to stream on his Facebook account, but then he had to switch it last minute. But
Yeah.
anyway, we're here, and this is going to be an interesting topic. Before we get to that, Construction Management Inspection is presenting this webinar and it's free. So we're actually providing all the costs and expenses, not having to charge you guys for watching. Well, Facebook is free, but we're broadcasting it over our Zoom platform, which is not free. But anyway, how about this topic? Climate change and global warming. Is it fake news? So how many of you folks, let's show of hands, how many of you folks think it's like fake news, like it's not real, it's something the government made up to scare everybody or make everybody pay more taxes or whatever? Anybody, fake? How many people think that it's real or um, like it maybe partially true or half true, or there's some resemblance of it being true? Okay, I see a bunch of hands go up. Okay, that's good. So, it doesn't really matter which side you're on, whether you think it's real or you think it's fake or whatever. We're here to not convince you. We're here to actually give you information and let you be the judge and let you decide. Sort of like voting. We don't tell you who to vote for. We just give you the facts, and sometimes the facts are a little skewed, um, twisted, and you still, at the end, you still don't know who to vote for. So hopefully at the end of this webinar, you'll understand some of the things that are happening, and you could kind of make your own decision, or uh, maybe say, I still don't believe what you're saying. And that's fine, that's cool. Um, before we talk about that though, I want to remind everybody that today is tax day, like when your taxes are due. And um, I'm very happy because I read over my returns and I'm getting a whole bunch of money back, a lot of money. I'm thinking about going on a cruise, or uh, I don't know what yet, but oh, wait a minute. I read it wrong. The money that I thought I was getting back, I actually owe the IRS. So, well, anyway, forget about that. Um, so let's talk about climate change, global warming, whatever you want to call it. It's actually happening. Um, and hold on a second. I gotta push a button here. There we go. I didn't pay my electric bill. All right, so we're going to talk about these different things that are happening, like sea level rise. Is the sea level rising? Is the ocean really rising? Is it like going down, getting higher? Um, Global warming, what's happening to the environment? Is it getting warmer? Why is it getting warmer, right? There's a lot of ice, and what happens is when the ice melts, tons of ice melting, of course, it adds more water to the ocean, and that's part of the sea level rise. And then the climate change. Is climate change due to environmental factors such as all these factories blowing all this smoke, or volcanoes and all that? So there's a lot of different things going on, including like wildfires and things like that. So anything that's not um, normal is some kind of effect or has an effect on the environment, right? And it's not only in small towns or cities. It's huge cities. It's happening to huge countries. It's happening all around the world. You probably hear a lot of news stories and all that. But as you know, everything you hear on the news you can't really believe until you fact check it, right? So I feel the earth move. So what's happening there? Why is the earth moving? Well, it could be earthquakes, it could be a volcano, and we're still having earthquakes, we're still having volcanoes, a lot of hurricanes and tsunamis. And the interesting part is seems like they're getting worse and worse, like more frequently. The hurricanes are getting bigger and badder. There's volcanoes erupting, and when they erupt, it could be a big event. Earthquakes, I mean, around the world there's big earthquakes, and uh, causes devastation, like in Turkey and in Haiti and different areas. And unfortunately, when there's a big earthquake, it's discovered that the buildings were not built correctly and properly, and that's why you got uh, miles and acres of buildings that are just collapsed. And we usually talk about on these webinars like construction and building stuff, so it's kind of relative, but I decided to go off topic a little and talk about the environment because it was by request. Somebody says, "Hey, you're the building expert guy. You know anything about climate change?" And I said, "Oh, there's no change." And he goes, "Oh, I don't think so." And I says, "Well, yeah, okay, we could put together a webinar." So Martin and I decided to put this webinar together just so that, there's a topic for discussion. And you don't have to believe everything that we're telling you, but at least listen to us and think about it. So the effects on climate change: sea level rise affects coastal properties around the world. And it's happening all over in Italy, in different other countries, and then, in a lot of cities in the United States, right? And I got some interesting pictures to show. I mean, as you can see, this one here, there's a building that I guess it's close to the ocean, but where you see water, that's actually a parking lot. So I guess they had so much water, the ocean overflowed onto the parking lot of this building, which is not really a good thing. So how about melting glaciers and wildfires? Well, what does melting glaciers have to do with what we're talking about? Well, you have like huge land masses that are covered with ice. And during the ice age, that's what was happening. But today you have all these huge glaciers, and they're huge. They're the size of uh, Greenland, and I mean it's really big. And when you think about it, these glaciers are melting so fast, and the water is trickling into the ocean. And when you have a lot of water melting, what happens is the ocean starts rising, right? So that's part of it. The other part is wildfires. Well, why is a wildfire contributing factor to uh, climate change and all that? Well, there have been studies where the wildfires are so big that it basically creates its own weather condition. There's a vortex, and I'm not sure if you saw photos or video of these fires, but it actually creates its own wind. And of course, it creates its own dust and smoke, and it's hazardous. It's all hazardous to breathe. You can get sick and even die from breathing those fumes. And a lot of wildfires actually start from nature, lightning. A lightning bolt hits a tree in a forest, and that tree starts burning, and all of a sudden all the other trees start burning, winds start blowing, and now you got acres and acres of fire that needs to be put out. And because it could be, far away from roads or any cities, it's very difficult to to put out. You got to use helicopters. The firefighters actually have to hike in, with heavy equipment and, do their thing. So um, it's happening and it's getting worse and worse. If you look at the United States map of how many wildfires, it's kind of crazy. And when I was in California, I actually looked at a live feed map, and you have a map of the United States, and you got these little glowing areas in the states, and then I narrowed it down to California, and I think there were like 20 something fires going on at the same time, and it's pretty scary. Major hurricanes. You've heard about all these hurricanes that are getting like worse and worse. They're like um, super hurricanes. In the past, it was like not too bad, but now we're hearing like so much devastation caused by these hurricanes, and contributing to more and more damage, and the dollar amount gets bigger and bigger. The dollar amount is in the billions, where in the past it was only in the millions, and that's a factor to consider, and that's because the hurricanes are getting bigger and bigger and more powerful, and it's kind of scary. Here's something else that's scary. A house in Hawaii falls into the ocean. Okay, so I took a selfie of myself because people might say, "Oh, you found that on the internet or whatever." No, this is a situation. A house in the North Shore actually slid in the backyard into the ocean, into the beach. As you can see, the ocean is right there, and the house is basically wedged in the sand. And this is pretty scary. And how did I find out about it? Well, the news people called me and said, "Did you hear about the house?" And I said, "No." They said, "Well, you have time to go check it out?" I said, "Yeah, give me the address." So I met the news people there, and basically the house is in the backyard, and there were two houses in one lot. And this house was the ocean front, and it was basically on a sort of like a cliff, and the water kept eroding the sand to the point of there was not enough sand to support the house foundation, and then the house literally just fell into the ocean. And it was kind of scary because I was trying to figure out, well, can the house be saved or not? And my first opinion was, no, I don't think so, because you can't get a big crane in to lift it up, because the road to get to the house was like very narrow. It was almost like a little lane. So I said, this is a lost cause. But what happened was the owner hired a contractor who knew how to kind of lift the house up a little and kind of pull it back on these rollers. So they actually saved the house. But what happens is the house in the present location is gonna happen again. So my opinion is they're gonna have to move the house further inland, away from the ocean. But I don't know how far you could move the house, because you got that house that's in the front already, so there's not really that much room. So in this case, I'm not sure what they could do. But this is a typical situation. It happens more often, and it's not like one house falls in the ocean 10 years later, then maybe another house, right? So it's going to be more and more of a problem. And there's more properties where the houses haven't fallen into the ocean, but their whole backyard is gone. And at one time, there used to be coconut trees in the backyard, and then slowly erosion. And next thing you know, the coconut trees are floating in the water. And next thing you know, the backyard is gone. And I'll show you some other pictures. Now, we're in California now, and I'll show you some more houses in Hawaii, but this is coastal erosion in California. And as you can see, the image on the left, that bluish looking house, it's already raised up, right? Which is a good idea, but it's on a cliff, and you look what's happening. The ocean is getting closer and closer, and their backyard is basically gone, right? They have little shrubs and all that, but pretty soon those are going to be in the ocean too. And if you look at all the black protection and all that and canvas, that's all uh, homeowner installed to prevent further erosion. Okay. And then if you look at the picture on the right, this is of a pretty big house, and they have a nice swimming pool and a pool deck. And what happened is they had so much erosion that now their swimming pool is going to go next. And when I was in San Clemente and the surrounding area, I was on the beach side, the flat area, and I was looking up, and you got all these multi-million-dollar houses on cliffs. And I'm thinking, wow, they must have a superb view, but what happens if there's erosion on the hill? And sure enough, more recently, these houses have experienced erosion, and part of their house is falling off the cliff. So it's kind of a scary sight. So let's move on to oceanfront houses in Hawaii. These are real houses in Hawaii. And if you look at, how much sand is eroded away, and it's not going to stop. So you know that in the future, these houses may not even be there anymore. Okay, so on the left, you got a lot of sand. On the right, you got a lot of sand and dirt. And if you look, there's like a huge sinkhole there, but that's actually caused by the ocean water. You can see the coconut trees and some of the roots and all that. And so what happens is it's not a sinkhole, actually. It's just the water, ocean water just keeps crashing. The level of the ocean is higher, and it keeps hitting the sand, and eventually the yards of these properties are gone, and so there's no yard, and eventually there'll be no house. And that's why owners try to do different things for protection. They bring in large boulders, large stones, they pour concrete, they fill bags with sand. I've seen some where they have these huge logs, and they put the logs like a dam, against the sand or dirt. They do everything. They're trying to do what they can, and whatever they're doing doesn't seem to be working, because you can't fool with Mother Nature. No matter what you do, you can build like a huge concrete wall, and eventually the waves would come in and undermine the wall, and next thing you know, the wall is collapsed, right? So it's very hard. You need a lot of good engineering and all that. Take a look at this photo. This is a tornado. And where do you think it is? Kansas and those surrounding states usually have tornadoes, right? But this tornado is not in Kansas. Guess where this picture's from? This is in California. Can you imagine? I mean, we never heard of tornadoes in California, but that's what's happening. And you got to ask yourself, wow, what? In the past, there were no tornadoes in California. Just like there was no snow in California, especially, except on the higher mountain areas. But in Los Angeles and surrounding area, which is flat and basically desert, and to have tornadoes or snow and all that. So you gotta kind of think, even if you doubt that something's going on, you kind of have to ask yourself, well, this is very unusual. Something is happening. What's the cause of all this? It's environmental changes. Um, the temperatures are getting hotter and hotter and colder in some areas. I got a text from a friend the other day um, that said in a certain part of Oregon, it was like 112 degrees, and that's kind of unheard of, right? So it's happening, and there's a lot of environmental changes going on, and these stories are real. So you got to ask yourself, well, in the past we never had this problem. What's happening now? It has to be due to the climate changing, the warming of temperatures, of the earth and those kind of things, which have a detriment to a lot of property. A lot of coastal property is getting damaged, and people are losing their houses, and they're losing a lot of value in their land. And let's see what I have next. Okay, I put not the last word because I'm not the last word. I'm not a scientist or anything like that, or even an environmentalist, right? I'm coming from the standpoint of uh, a building expert, but when certain things affect buildings, then it's kind of there's a correlation, right? So, um, I'm probably not the best person to be talking about climate and weather and all that, but if it affects a building or buildings, yeah, like wildfires affect property. There's cities that actually burnt down, entire cities burnt to a crisp, nothing there, and that's kind of scary. And then also, um, now you got people that have houses built on cliffs or on the ocean, and they're losing their property or they're losing their houses. So that's not the last word from me. I say stay tuned and see what's happening more and more. Uh, Part of the reason why I know it's important is because the government is also involved. There's government agencies that are involved in working on these issues, environmental, global warming, climate change, and all that. So it's happening. If the government is looking at it, it must be real, right? Except for UFOs. The government didn't want us to know about UFOs, but that's for another webinar. Okay, so basically, in a nutshell, that's what this talk is all about. I wanted to just kind of bring your attention to this environmental issue and bring it home wherever you are. If you're living in an area where it's not affected, okay, good, but other people are affected. Like, you never think like beautiful Hawaii would have a problem with houses falling in the ocean, okay, but it's happening, right? Boulders on a mountain rolling down the hill, crashing into houses. It's happening. Why? Well, because the boulder's not secure. We're having like a lot of rain, and the rain loosens the soil, and now all of a sudden that rock that was there for 80 years, all of a sudden now is like rolling down the hill. And I use the term rock, but it's like a huge boulder that weighs like 10,000 pounds. It's heavier than a car, so it's pretty scary. People can get hurt. They can die from these kind of things. So before I get to the questions, conclusion, well, I'm not going to give you a conclusion. I'm saying you guys make your own conclusion based on what I just presented, and then information that you hear from other sources, right? And like I said, it doesn't matter if you believe in this or not. I think it's real, and we have to pay attention to it. Okay. Now, what you missed, we've given a whole bunch of webinars, and I have the schedule for upcoming webinars. So I'm gonna take some time now to go and let you know what the titles are. So we're switching gears from building and construction. So next month, we'll be talking about condos. So this is kind of, real estate condominium kind of stuff. So we have a webinar on condo board errors. And I'll be sharing with you what board members do wrong and what they do right, but mostly what they do wrong to cause problems. And then what happens when they cause serious problems, people sue. So the next webinar is condo lawsuits. There's trouble in paradise. And I'll be talking to you about actual lawsuits that I've been involved in, most of them, and one where I wasn't an expert, but I know the attorney that handled the lawsuit. And then moving on, there's 7 stages of construction, another webinar, 14 types of building structure components. And then here's a down home topic, Aloha Stadium from rust to dust. What's going on today with Aloha Stadium? Well, we don't know. We keep hearing it's on, it's not on, it's a smaller stadium. They have this whole entertainment complex, but then that got scrapped. They're building affordable housing. Well, we don't know where, how much. That's still up in the air. And then next webinar is the real estate development process. I'll be talking about how a developer looks at property, what they do, what steps do they take from looking at a piece of land to wanting to acquire the land to actually develop the land and build a building on it, be it office building, high-rise residential, or shopping center, and that kind of thing. And then after that, water damage, flood remediation, and this has to do with if you have like a leak or flood at your house or a condo or office building. I'll be talking about what happens, how to remediate, who to call in. There's normally 2 steps to the process. One is the remediation people who go in and mop things up, clean things up, and then you have the actual reconstruction of the contractor who has their crew going in, demolishing walls, rebuilding and all that, and putting the place back up to pre-flood condition. And then talking about more legal stuff, construction defect litigation cases. I'll be talking about that in a separate webinar. And then are you planning to renovate your own house or condo? I have a webinar on renovation is no vacation. Well, why is it not a vacation? Well, because there's many steps and there've been a lot of headaches. I've seen couples almost on the verge of getting divorced because they're in the middle of renovating their house or building a house, and there's all kind of problems. So we're not going to give you any marriage counseling or anything on that, but mainly talking about working with a contractor. And then we're back to real estate again. I'll be talking about real estate seller disclosure, what pros and cons, what the law actually is. I'll be telling you about as-is sales and all that, and all that good stuff. And you might ask, hey, you're the building construction expert. What are you talking about real estate? Well, I've had my real estate license from 1980, and I'm still involved in real estate. So just, trying to help out the cause here. And then we're talking about building code, giving a webinar on the International Residential Code, which is different from the International Building Code. Okay, so tune in and find out what the difference is. And then I'm going to be talking next after that about cliff dwelling construction. I thought of that because, hey, people don't necessarily all live on flat areas. Some of them, live on a mountain. Some of them live in a mountain. And so that's a cliff dwelling. And then, here's a touchy subject, the rail, the big, bad, and the ugly. So I'll be talking about that. You're probably sick of hearing about it, but hopefully by the time I give the webinar, the rail will be running, and I can show you pictures of me sitting in the rail taking a ride, and then I'll give you my opinion on how much I spent buying the ticket, where I went, and it's most likely probably from Kapolei all the way to Aloha Stadium, maybe to Middle Street. I don't know. We'll see what happens. The mayor said, "Hey, the rail will be running by July," and Hart said, "Oh, we didn't know that." So I thought that was pretty funny. And then I got two more. Another big topic, Red Hill, the big Navy blunder. So by that time, I'll probably have more information, and maybe the whole issue will be resolved by then. Who knows? And then last webinar, why hire a construction manager? And a lot of people don't realize that when they're doing construction, whether it's their own house or you're on a condo board and you're having work done at your building, people don't realize that you can hire a consultant to help you. So you're not all alone facing the contractor. Sometimes it's good to have that expert on your side as an intermediary, or somebody that can interface between you and the contractor, because sometimes it gets pretty messy. And so, we're able to help as a construction manager. Okay, I already mentioned what's coming up. Well, what you missed, we've done a whole bunch of webinars on roofing, hurricane ties, building code, contractor license, and all that. So I kind of got this out of order, but that's okay. And then visit our website, askbuildingexpert.now.site. And you might ask, well, what's on that website? Well, it's pretty huge. Martin and I have spent hours and hours and a lot of money building this website up. We have all our past webinars are all on that website. You can watch the videos on demand. Choose which video you want. Watch it when you have time. Choose a topic. See if you're interested. Most of them are 60 minutes long. But if you don't have 60 minutes, watch part of it, or fast forward to the section you like. It's all up there. We have takeaways, our PowerPoints are on there. We have free books that you can download, and every month we're putting out a free book. You join our book club and you can get an ebook emailed to you for free. And we got different topics. So, save $100, because to join, that's probably what the fee is, but it's free to join and the book is free. If you want to buy the book, it's $14.95 on Amazon. But if you're Chinese like me, I like get stuff free. So Martin too. So we're offering those. And then we have other websites for you to check out on that website. So we got websites on a website. How about that? And then I think it's time for the Q&A, but if you need to get a hold of me, phone number is 808-422-2132. If I don't answer, I'm probably on a webinar, on a Zoom meeting, on a roof of a building or something like that. So just leave a message. If you want to email, it's lanceluke@hawaiibuildingexpert.com. And let me check something here. I was checking the chat, but then it was Martin, so I don't need to read what he wrote. Anyway, Martin, got any questions from our lovely audience, whoever is participating, or maybe on Zoom? I can help with.
Yes, I do. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, good.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of a quiet crowd. I guess climate, global warming, all that is kind of a different kind of topic, yeah.
Nah, they probably got all depressed already. It's like, I'm not going to ask any question. I'm thinking about my house.
Right. Well, we do have a couple, so let me give you the first one here. It says, I'm a North Shore resident and the ocean is slowly taking my backyard. I tried to shore up my yard using different methods, but got cited by DLNR. Can you give me suggestions to help my cause?
Okay, as you know, you cannot build in, see, the property line of your yard, and anybody who has oceanfront property, the property line is like where the water comes in on high tide, right? And let's say there's debris in the water, so you go to the backyard and it's high tide. Okay, although that's your backyard, that actually belongs to the state. It's a moving target, and then when it's low tide, you get more property, right? But that line is getting more towards your property, and so what happens is when you try to shore up your property, the state comes in and says, "Hey, you're in the shoreline setback area. You cannot build anything over the area." So it's like you have like beach. You're not allowed to build anything on the beach, okay? And even if it's your own property, it's very hard. Okay, what you have to, people, like I mentioned before, they bring in boulders, they have a crane trucking in bags of rock, they fill sandbags up, they bring in logs, they pour like a concrete wall. They try to do all these different things, and it works temporarily, but if you're doing it on state property, of course you're going to get a citation. You need to get approval, to shore up your own property. And then most people, they don't get permits, right? Because like, I can't afford to get a permit. My house is like sliding in the ocean. So that's very hard. I would say talk to DLNR, and then talk to your politicians. You got to talk to your city people, state senator and representatives, and keep talking to them and have meetings with them and all that. And that's the most you can do, because you don't want to keep getting cited. Okay, so it becomes a political thing, and that's what you got to do. Meet with your neighbors, maybe form a coalition, talk to other engineers, and see what you can do. If you need other help, let me know. I probably can't resolve your citation. Well, I could probably read it and tell you what to do, but you probably know that yourself. So hopefully that helps a little.
Sounds good, Lance. The next question that's come up here is, looks like it might be from somebody on our beautiful windward side here. It says, driving to Turtle Bay from Kaneohe, I noticed some roads being washed away and eroding. Is the government at fault for building the road too close to the water? Good question.
Well, I think when the road was designed, it wasn't too close to the water, but I think part of the beach got washed away, and then now, I mean, I've seen it. I was driving to Hauula, Ka'ava, out that area, and for the longest time when I was a kid, I thought that road was like too close to the ocean, right? Then now it's even closer. I mean, you practically have a situation where if you turn the wheel of your car and you're driving like a foot off the road, you're already in the ocean already. Okay, so they have to shore up the road. So I guess in perspective, yeah, we think that it was designed too close to the ocean, but at that time it probably wasn't. But now we have a problem, because no matter what they do to shore up the road, eventually that road's going to be gone, right? And so now they're looking at building the road further inland, but what happens then? You end up taking people's front yards. All those people who live across from the beach in that area, they're probably going to get their property condemned or part of their front yard so the road can be realigned. But then, you know, if that happens, okay, well, how good is that? How long is that gonna last, right? So that's a big question. And the other thing is, you know, all those houses and buildings in Waikiki and Kaka'ako, that's like right on the water or close to it. What's going to happen with those? You know, you've seen those movies where there's a big tsunami coming in, and now all of Waikiki is underwater and all that. So it's pretty scary. But I want to bring up like the Alawai flood project that's coming up again. And so if you're interested in finding more about it, do the research and make your comments, because the Army Corps of Engineer and the city are going to, you know, second round now and saying this is going to be for real, and here's what we're planning on doing. And you know, try to figure it out, because Manoa, Palolo, Mo'iliili, Makali, the water goes all the way down and to hit the Alawai. And so there's a flood mitigation so that all these houses don't get flooded in the event of a heavy rain and the Alawai gets flooded and overflows, right? And if when the Alawai overflows, guess what? All those buildings in Waikiki are going to get flooded out. Okay, but here's a question that you might want to think about. So let's say we have like a huge storm and the Alawai overflows. Okay, but what happens on the ocean side? Okay, isn't the water from the ocean going to rise up and then go into the Alawai? So now you got water coming down from the mountain, draining into the Alawai Canal, and then you got ocean water from the ocean draining into Alawai. So what's happening with that? So no one could give me an answer. So maybe I'll attend the meeting and ask that question, or ask one of the engineers. Because if you don't know this, in the past, there was actually a design for 2 canals, right? Alawai was just one of them. The other canal was to go from part of where the Alawai is through Kapilani Park, through San Susi, and that was where it was gonna hit the ocean. So there were 2 tributaries that were supposed to be designed, but they scrapped that one, and now Alawai is the only one. That's part of the problem. Okay, so if they had 2, I think it would have been a lot better. But anyway, that's some trivia. So we got any other questions or comments?
Yeah, we have one more, and I may have one for you too. The last one that's come in here is, do you think the government should pay for helping homeowners by moving their houses away from the ocean, or possibly buying their property so that people can move elsewhere?
Well, that's an interesting question, because the people who have beachfront property and are losing property, yeah, they say, you know, my property used to be worth millions. Now it's hardly worth anything because my house is going to be gone. So yeah, I want the government to pay me, you know, $2 million so I can get the money and move inland or somewhere else, right? But the other taxpayers are saying, hey, wait a minute, this guy, he's the guy that decided to buy near the ocean. I couldn't afford to buy near the ocean, so I bought on a mountain, or I'm living in a desert. Okay, why should my taxes be used to pay for that guy, right? But on the other hand, there's an issue where the city had condemned property, and I'll give you an example. In Aina Haina, there were houses that were sinking and sliding down the hill. The city went and condemned those properties and bought it and paid the owners supposedly fair market value, and they could buy a house elsewhere. Okay, why did the city do that? because people were saying it's the city's fault. They shouldn't have allowed these homeowners to build there. The city was the one that approved the permit, right? So is that equivalent to somebody who builds on the ocean? The city is going to say, we never knew the ocean was going to take half your backyard, right? So, I mean, how do you deal with that? That's like a loaded question there. So there's pros and cons to it, because I understand that if you have oceanfront property and you're losing your property and you can't build anymore because of the size of the lot or whatever, shouldn't the government buy out your property? But then if that's the case, then how do you establish the value, right? The value of that property where half your yard's gone because of ocean, and knowing in the future more and more of the land is going to be gone, what's the value of that property? It used to be 5 million. Now it's 0, right? So the city will come in, or the state, and go, okay, we'll buy your property. We'll give you $10. And the guy goes, well, wait a minute. When I bought my property, I spent 1 million. So I want 2 million. And so good luck with that, trying to, if that's the case, they're going to be fighting in court to figure out what the value of the property is. How can you value a property where you don't know what's going to happen to the property in the future, right? It's kind of weird. So, we'll see. And there's two sides to every situation. So we'll see what happens.
Good answer, Lance. And my question is kind of a follow-up to that. I mean, it's just like when you buy property. When you buy it, it's whatever the market is, and then of course markets change, just like the rates change and the cost changes and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what's happening too, I think, and that that $2 million property was 2 million when it was new, but now because of environmental conditions or whatever, it's now the market is 0 or much less, and that happened even with the 2008 thing, where people bought houses at big prices, and then all of a sudden the market died, and then your valuation is based on whatever the market is at the point. So yeah, I think you're right. But my question was, for all these environmental climate issues, whatever's causing the erosion or weather, hurricanes, what do you suggest that homeowners who are in those situations, or maybe in those situations, what strategy or approach do you think they should be taking to preserve and protect themselves now? And I know that's the whole insurance business, is right. You pay this insurance and it helps protect you. What is a strategy you would suggest for people that are in this situation now or close to it? Yeah, it may come.
Well, that's a good thing to bring up, because you have to look at the what kind of concern. So let's say you have a house and you're concerned about a hurricane. Okay, so in that instance, you would make sure that your house has the proper hurricane protection, hurricane clips and all that. Older houses don't have that, by the way. Single wall construction, built in the 50s, there was no building code to require hurricane ties and all that, but you can do a retrofit, right? So that's one thing on a hurricane. Now let's talk about a tsunami. If you have a house close to the ocean or in the tsunami zone, there's basically nothing you can do, right? When that siren goes off, you better head for the hills, because you can't protect your house from huge waves. I mean, there are probably some things you could do, maybe build a higher wall or whatever, but I don't think that's much protection. Depends how big the wave is, right? So it all depends. And another example, and we don't have to worry about this in Honolulu or on Oahu, but if you're on the Big Island and you live in a volcano zone area, it's sort of like a tsunami thing. What do you do? How can you protect your house from that? Well, if you're farther away, there's certain things you can do to help during a eruption, provided you're not in that direct flow zone, right? If you're in the direct flow zone, you gotta head in another direction because you can't stop the volcano. There's no on and off switch, just like you can't stop a tsunami, right? So it's a risk factor. People know that they're buying property that's in that volcano zone, and people who buy oceanfront, they know they're buying property in the tsunami zone, right? And you don't have to be in a tsunami zone. You could just have the coastal erosion factor, and that's why the real estate people have come up with a special form when people are buying, selling real estate, and that form has to do with coastal erosion. You have to disclose that there could be a problem in the future if there's no problem now, right? The problem now is pretty obvious, right? You can see it, but for people who can't see it, that's why. But it gets to be crazy where you have to disclose like practically everything. Like, how am I supposed to disclose if I'm selling a piece of property what's going to happen in the future? I don't have a crystal ball or anything, right? But it's gotten so bad, and I'm talking in like real estate, like, so all those houses in Eva, right, that are in the area where when planes fly overhead, you could hear the plane, and that's in the flight path. You have to disclose it on the disclosure to the buyer. So I would have to, oh, Martin, you're buying my house in Eva. By the way, this house is located in the aircraft zone, or whatever you call it, which means that you're going to hear airplanes flying above you in the neighborhood off and on. So don't say that when you buy my house, later on you call me up and say, hey, you never tell me that there was noise from airplanes. So that has to be disclosed. So it's interesting because litigious society, everyone wants to sue, they're sue happy. So that's why you come up with all this documentation. Here, sign this saying that I told you about this, right? And the same way with environmental factors. You're buying a house, there's a lead-based paint form, asbestos form. You got to say there is, if you know, or if you don't know, you got to say, well, there could be. The house was built in before 1977, 1978. It could be lead paint or asbestos. I don't know. I never had any tests done, but I'm just giving you a heads up. Oh, by the way, here's a brochure you have to read. So selling real estate is not easy because of all these disclosure stuffs, but that's probably fodder for like another webinar where we talk about real estate stuff and all that. And after I get through that, Martin, you're not going to want to renew your real estate license. You're going, too much hassle. I'll just do these webinars and talk about building and construction and social media stuff. But
okay.
anyway, we got any other comments? If not, we can sign off.
Well, I mean, you gave a good answer on that one, that most people don't really look at. There's always a risk management factor to things that you buy and do and that kind of stuff. And I mean, you can do as much as you can, like insure and whatever, but that's just something that's got to be looked at. I mean, if you're prepared, and it's a preparation item, yeah, for your long term, yeah. So thank you for that.
The other word of wisdom is if anyone's buying a house or a condo, get a home inspection done. At least you get peace of mind, you know what's going on. And now lately, I'm telling people that are sellers, get a home inspection done. And a lot of people, I don't want to spend the money. I'll just wait for a buyer to come in and let them pay for the inspection. But can you imagine if the seller had gotten their own inspection, and when they sell And then when they prepare and submit their seller disclosure statement, they go, oh, here's my seller disclosure statement. By the way, I had a home inspection and I'm attaching that so you know, and I'm selling the house as is, right? As opposed to you don't say anything, you wait around and the buyer comes in and hires their own home inspector, and that guy or gal makes a list and say, here's all the things wrong with the house. And then the buyer gives the list to you. I'm not buying the house until you fix all these things, right? And then what happens is you're supposed to close escrow 30, 45 days, and you need more time, you need an extension, or you might say, I don't agree with that. And the buyer says, okay, then I'm not buying the house. Now your house is put back on the market. You got to wait another 30, 60, 90 days, right? So think about it. That's like the smart thing to do. That's what I recommend to all my clients anyway. But
Good risk
that's
management.
probably for another webinar. So thank you everybody for joining in. If you're tuning in on Facebook or on our Zoom, and if you're from other states, I think information still applies. If you're located in Kansas, there's no coastal erosion or tsunamis or anything, but you may have tornadoes. But anyway, go to our website, check out our free stuff, sign up for the next webinar, and thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Aloha.
Aloha.
Hey, Martin, can you stop the recording?
I will do that.